Economic Development Council. We are a very small nonprofit, and we serve San Juan Island's businesses with whatever they need. We work on behalf of our businesses, so we help them with counseling, with training, with workforce training, things like trades classes. We can do technical support on things like the PPP program for businesses. We can do business counseling and refer to other partners in the community and out in the state and at the federal level. So whatever your business needs, we can help with. We also work hard to improve the economy of the islands, a topic that's currently at the forefront of our thoughts as we think about the current downturn and how we might weather future storms better. So check out our website. It's sanjuansedc.org, San Juans with an S, edc.org, and you can check out all the stuff that we do, including our weekly business recovery call on Wednesday mornings and our twice weekly business classes. We have a lunchtime business class that we call Chat and Chew. It's a super casual conversation with local and regional experts on a variety of topics. So we hope you join in for that. And as a larger conversation, we wanted to connect with community members throughout the islands and really get a feel of what you're hearing, what you know, what you want to know, and put you in connection with our local elected officials and our local administrators, our governmental administrators. So this is the first call that we've done as our community forum. In the coming weeks, we'll be looking at topics like education, health, seniors, businesses, all kinds of different topics that will help you understand what's going on and help us, elected officials, us at the EDC, all the nonprofit leaders, help us to really better understand what you're facing as well. So thank you again for joining us. I'm gonna just see quickly if Mike Thomas is here. I think he was gonna have to be here a little bit late. So Duncan, I'm gonna go ahead and hand the mic over to you if that's okay, the virtual mic, to tell us a little bit about how the town is handling this and the things that they're doing on behalf of town members and the community.
Thank you.
Thanks, Duncan.
First of all, I think it's important to clear up the relationship between the town and the county on this. Brendan Cowan, who is the emergency manager for the county, is also the emergency manager for Friday Harbor. So that we don't duplicate efforts, we went ahead and we pay a portion of Brendan's salary to have him act as the emergency manager for the town as well. And the same is true with the San Juan County Health Department. I received a number of emails today from people asking what the town was doing to get us out of get us into phase 2 and out of phase 1. And my response was, we can't do anything. That's the county's responsibility. And the health department for the county is the town's health department as well. So we follow the lead of San Juan County Health, and we also follow the lead of Dr. James. What we've done so far is that we have a number of things we've tried to do to help the community. The first one was our putting out the Harbor Life Ring, which is accepting donations through our utility billing that goes out every month. The Harbor Life Ring, we had a bunch of really generous people pop in and donate this last month in April. We received a total of $14,000 from the community, which we added to a $5,000 match from the town and a $5,000 match from King's Market. For a total of $24,000, a little more than $24,000. Those monies have been handed off to the food bank, has received half of that, $12,000. The other $12,000 was deposited into an account that is utilized to help people who need some assistance with their utility bills. And that has been a very active account here over the last several weeks, as many people have gone to the Family Resource Center to make application to get to those funds. We also allocated a sum of $20,000 to the Family Resource Center for a housing voucher fund This is an account that can be utilized to help make payments on your rental. The Family Resource Center does all of the screening and then we'll utilize the money that we provide. As the money is needed, the town releases it to the Family Resource Center to assist in that function as well. We also are working with the state of Washington right now to secure a grant that we have received through the CARES Act in the amount of $72,600. That money has to be utilized to take care of COVID-19 expenses the town may have, and it will also be utilized for expenses to help in the community. We expect that a portion of that is also going to go into an additional fund for housing issues. We are filling out the paperwork, was working on it today, and hopefully within the next couple of weeks, we will have that money come in and we can start shipping it out. We also assisted the hoteliers that were closed. We assisted them in paying, helping to pay some of their utility bills. It wasn't enough to pay all of it, but there was some money that we granted to pay off the hoteliers' bills for utilities since they are not open and could not make any money. The town will be tomorrow at the council meeting discussing what the town council's position is going to be for going into phase 2. I can tell you the mayor's position is the mayor would like to see us move to phase 2. The town council will have an opportunity to discuss and make a decision as to whether they want to endorse that as well. My understanding is there's a meeting at 9 a.m. on Friday. That meeting will be for the Board of Health and for the County Council. The Board of Health will meet first, make a recommendation, and then the County Council will chime in. If everything goes as could be, that would give an opportunity for the health department to send on a recommendation to open the county up to phase 2 in sometime next week. There's a lot of ifs between now and then. The council has to make a decision, the health has to make the decision. So there's a number of different things that could happen between now and then. But the town council will be discussing it to see if they wish to endorse that move at the meeting that's going to occur on Friday. And I think I'll stop right there and just stay ready to answer questions as they may come up.
Thank you, Duncan. And actually, I forgot to mention, we have a chat box. So if you go to the bottom of your screen and click the chat button, we can answer questions as we go along. And if you type in your questions, and then we'll open up the session at the very end of the meeting for questions and answers. And Mike Thomas has joined us. And Duncan, I neglected to say who you are. There was a question about that in the chat box. So Duncan Wilson is the administrator of the town of Friday Harbor. And I'll be passing the mic to Mike Thomas, the administrator for San Juan County. And he'll be telling us about what's happening at the county level. Thanks, Mike, for joining us.
Yeah, thank you. So I'm joined by phone. So always an issue with these Zoom or Skype meetings. Sometimes you think you can get in, sometimes the technology is befuddling. But nonetheless, thank you for the opportunity to be with you this evening. I'm going to pick up where Duncan left off, and that's on the phase 2 discussion. So I just wanted to be clear that the phase, and you might have seen this in the Seattle Times, there was an article about 10 eligible counties, San Juan County being one of those. So we are eligible to apply for a variance to move to phase 2. So there's quite a bit of process to that. And as Duncan indicated, that will be a subject of discussion on Friday with the Board of Health and our health officer, Dr. James, as well as the council. So the decision is to move forward with the application, and then the state has to process that. So it's hard to say exactly should that effort move forward when exactly we would be allowed by the state to move to phase 2, but it would probably be sometime maybe as early as the first week of June. But again, we don't necessarily know. But moving to phase 2 would allow for some uses that are curtailed right now. Some of the more notable ones are real estate and new construction. So we'll see what happens on Friday with that discussion. As far as the county's response goes, whether we're doing some of the stuff that the town is doing, so we look at this pandemic really in 2 ways. One, from a health response, and secondly, from an impact to our community. On the community front, we've been able to find, whether it's our own county dollars or state dollars or other regional dollars, funds to pay for protective gear. We've provided additional funding to Victoria at the EDC so she can have some extra staff horsepower to process unemployment claims or some of the small business administration loans. Found some extra funds for the resource centers to help people with emergency rental assistance. We have state funds in our possession to help with securing homes for those that may become homeless because of the results of COVID-19. And then we're also beginning to get our arms around 2 large federal pots of money, the CARES Act and then FEMA. Those monies are important to pay for the EOC response. So today, the county spent about $500,000 in its EOC response. So we will continue to do what we can to provide funds for the community. And part of that is also advocating. So we're spending time with our legislatures, the governor's office, our federal delegation, whoever we need to try to get money for the community. A couple of other things. I have to mention our website. We've done a pretty good job putting the website together, and there's a lot of information, almost too much information for people to process. But our website has all kinds of information regarding FAQs, or we call hot topics, things that people come up with, they need answers for. We also have the guidance coming out of the governor's office for construction or farmers markets or kayak guides. So we try to keep those. And then you can always go to the governor's site to see that guidance, but it gets kind of overwhelming, the amount of guidance that's coming out. I want to take speaking of the EOC, I want to take the opportunity to thank all of the volunteers that have or are currently helping us with our Emergency Operations Center. We really could not have done the job that we're doing now without their help. So again, I can't thank them enough for stepping up. On the kind of business front for the county, we are working. Our buildings are closed, but staff continues to work. A lot of them are working remotely. Perhaps you see some of our crews out there chip sealing recently, but we're trying to find a way to continue the services. I'll just point out that you can email, phone, or make appointments. We have drop boxes exterior to the courthouse, so you can drop off documents there. There's 4 boxes by different departments. So anyway, we're trying to continue doing the business that we're doing, and then trying to get our minds around things that we can't do anymore, like the fair. We're going to have a virtual fair this year, so there'll be more information on that. But those are just some of the things that the county's working on, and thank you for the opportunity. Back to you, Victoria.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mike. Fantastic. Thanks. It's good to hear about what the town and the county are working on. We do have some questions in the chat box, and since Duncan and Mike are on the call right now, I'm going to go ahead and read out a couple of them. And at the end of this, if you could stay on, I'm going to unmute everybody so we can get all of the calls that might be out there. So let me quickly look through the chat box. We had one comment or one question from Chris Schultz-Drain, who wanted to know if there would be any help for small businesses. And that might be, Duncan, you talked about what the town's doing, but that might be a question for Mike. And if not, I can certainly reach out to Chris after the call, and we can talk about what we're seeing from our office.
I guess for the county, I think our funding, there's of course always more you can do, but our funding to the EDC was to help with small business. So the SBA loan application process, to give you more horsepower to help folks out with that.
Absolutely. So Chris, I will reach out to you later. And I did want to mention, which I did not mention at the beginning of this, and I know Duncan and Mike, you don't care, but we are recording this, and we will put the portion that is at the beginning of this onto our website so that people who couldn't make it today can hear what Duncan and the other speakers will talk about. So just know that it might include the Q&A as well. Yes, Duncan?
I could just to clear up some confusion, because I saw it written about the House of Representatives in Washington, D.C. passed this HEROES Act a couple of days ago. And in that HEROES Act, there was discussion about the potential for the county to receive $9 million and the town to receive $1,200,000 to help us with the losses we are suffering from revenues during this time. That money has not been released. Somebody thought that we already had that money, and we do not. It's now in the hands of the Senate, and the Senate has said they're not interested in doing any new acts at this point in time. We'll see if they change or if there's some negotiation. But those dollar amounts are not dollar amounts that the county and town has control over right now, and it's still with the politicals back in Washington, D.C.
Thank you, Duncan. Okay, we have another question from Angie Ringson on Orcas. She would like to bring up some future online business ideas. So Angie, I'm gonna wait until the end of the call because we've got other speakers who might actually be talking about that. So hang on a mo, and I'll bring that back up at the end. And I am gonna go ahead and pass the virtual mic over to Mark Tompkins. The only problem is I think he's one of these phone numbers. Mike Thomas, do you recognize any of the phone numbers in the participant line as being Mark Tompkins?
He should be 7517.
Oh, there he is. Okay. Hey, Mark, are you there? I just unmuted you. It's taking a village to pull off this conversation. There we go. It keeps remuting. Okay. Mark, are you there?
Yeah,
Oh,
I am
good. Yay. Okay. Mark, can you tell us a little bit? Mark Tompkins is the Director of Health and Community Services for the county. Could you give us an update on what you are learning and doing and hearing about?
Well, that's a pretty big open-ended question. So
It is.
I guess I was prepared to kind of talk about and build upon what Duncan and Mike had already discussed, which was the phased reopening, the Safe Start to Washington, that I think a lot of people are familiar with, and the different activities that go along with that. So I think, as everybody knows, we're in phase one. As been mentioned by Mike and Duncan, there is an opportunity, and San Juan County is eligible to apply for phase two, and the businesses there, provided the health officer, Board of Health, and County Council recommendations come in, and then we submit our application, which is then approved by the State Department of Health. We're getting lots of questions in and around, as different businesses are opened up, what are their requirements? And so I think most people are aware, maybe not everybody, is that as businesses are open, the State Department of Health and Washington State are putting together a variety of guidelines and recommendation and standards that businesses must follow. And those recommendations, guidelines, and requirements must be developed, and then the business must adopt those procedures as part of their practices to reopen. And so that was one of the, I guess, nuances that folks initially in some of the counties that got to go to phase two weren't aware of. And so some counties were approved to go to phase two, but there were no guidelines for businesses to reopen. So almost all businesses have standards and requirements to safely reopen, there's a page that you could find on our website that are resources for businesses that will take you to those various guidelines. And so they all revolve around what's required within the particular phase, the procedures that folks must follow, and then a lot of issues around employee safety and health. So if you're not familiar with that, and if you're a business within the either phase 1 or phase 2, I'd encourage you to look at those and make sure you're complying. And so just as an example, in phase 2, restaurants, dine-in restaurants are allowed to reopen at 50% capacity. In order to do that, they must have a written procedure that follows and complies with all health and safety requirements that have been developed. And it lists out what the requirements are for the dine-in service regarding spacing, for tables, regarding limiting or prohibiting bar seating in phase 2, having hand sanitizer available, the tables being spaced far enough apart for social distancing, wearing a cloth face masks, so on and so forth. And so I'm not going to go through them all, but almost all of the standards and requirements have some consistent messages within there around social distancing, around personal protective equipment for employees, around signage, around big emphasis on health and safety for your employees, including educating your staff, including the 6-foot separation when possible, providing the appropriate personal protective equipment, hand washing, frequent and cleaning and sanitizing of high-touch surfaces, and then also screening of employees, which is an important piece of that. And so those are everything that I've seen so far has that. They also require a site-specific supervisor that will be there on site to include the monitoring of health of the employees. Most of them also have issues around sick leave and encouraging, obviously, staff to stay home if they're sick. And so a lot of the standards that we've been talking about as far as staying home if you're sick, washing your hands, covering your cough, all apply as we move forward with this. I will point out, and I think most people are aware, is that the health officer also issued an order last Saturday that would require, if we and when we enter phase 2, that the owners and operators of businesses within the county not permit or allow any non-employee to enter or remain inside a building unless they are wearing a cloth face covering over their mouth and nostrils. And so it is obviously that wouldn't apply while somebody is either eating or drinking within a restaurant. And it further requires that businesses that sell food, medicine, or medical supplies provide a method for customers to purchase the items without entering the building if they don't have a cloth face mask. And so there's some specific items on there also found on our website. And so we've been working with businesses and answering questions around these documents and trying to get them prepared as they move forward. And so there's a whole bunch of information within that. There are links to multiple different sites. And again, if you're a business owner, I would encourage you to go to our website, click on the resources for businesses, find the applicable guidelines for your business, and you can start going through that and figuring out what you would need to do to safely reopen when we eventually move into phase 2. So I guess with that, Victoria, I'll stop and then turn the mic back over to you.
Thank you so much, Mark. And we will have Q&A at the end. So if anybody has questions for any of the previous speakers, just wait a sec and we will get those out at the end. We do have some questions in the chat box as well, so we'll get to those also at the end. I want to call on Rick Hoffman if he's available. He's the director of the Port of Lopez. So he's going to give us a quick update on what's happening on Lopez.
Well, I can speak to a couple of things. I'm not a director. I am the airport manager for the Port of Lopez, and my commissioners would probably take offense if I claimed otherwise. But we are essentially functioning as normal. Airports have guidance, of course, with the county and with the state, but we also have the FAA. And the FAA puts a lot of money into airports, and that means the FAA has some say into how airports operate. That said, we have curtailed camping. It's not allowed at the airport. We have posted the notices about unnecessary trips at the airport, but we are moving forward. I think the most exciting thing happening at the airport part is that we did receive a CARES grant through the FAA for $30,000. The commissioners have taken action this past week to put that money to use, local. Almost all of the money will be used with local businesses on Lopez, with the exception of one contractor from Orcas to do improvements at the airport. So that's a really good thing for a small airport, to be able to get some maintenance issues done, to get some, different things happening at the airport, and most importantly, that it will be all done within the local community, or at least within the county, to make that happen. We're eagerly awaiting what phase 2 might bring us. Our camping, we're thinking, may not be allowed as yet, but the airport has been very slow, but the airport is also very important. We have freight coming into the airport every day, which includes things for the pharmacy, things for the store, plus individuals, and medical samples that go out every afternoon from the Lopez Clinic. So we do have a critical function within the community, and we're happy that we are sanitized every day. We have a portable toilet. We're not fancy. One of our projects is permanent bathrooms, and we're happy to move along with that. But our ready room and freight area is also sanitized every day. So we're trying to do our part, and trying to stay up to date on what is happening with all of the regulations that come down from the federal, the state, and the county government.
Thank you so much, Rick. It's great to hear. At one point we had the Port of Friday Harbor on the line, but it looks like we might have lost them. And such are the vagaries of doing online Zoom calls. So I'm going to go ahead and move on to some of the questions that we've received, in the hopes that we can get some answers. Hillary, I'm going to go ahead and unmute you so that you can ask your questions. So hang on a minute. Let me get you in the list here. Okay, Hillary, I just unmuted you. Thank you for joining the call, and you had some good questions. Do you want to go ahead and ask them?
Thanks for having us. We weren't expecting to be able to be on tonight, but we are. I'm here with Colleen O'Brien, who's all masked up. we're not quite socially distanced, but she's in my circle of safety. So I'm curious about how the EOC has allotted, or how they've spent the $500,000 that they've been given to run the program. And I'm also curious about how the county has been spending the $312,000 from Commerce. I know that some has been allotted to the Community Foundation for sanitation for our shelter program, but I understand that other funds have been allotted both to Save San Juan's and to some other things, and I'd like to hear if that's public information. I'd like to know what it is. So thanks so much.
Mike, are you there?
Yeah. So the 500,000 that I referred to is so we keep track of all our expenditures for the EOC. So that's staff time and supplies. So I would say a bulk of that is staff time, and most of it's staff time. And then I don't have a breakdown in front of me. Mark might have a more exact breakdown, but it's tracking people's times and, of course, expenditures for a variety of things.
It'd be great to have some deliverables, like what have we gotten from that? I'll just be honest with you, the Community Foundation has so far worked with zero funding from our Community Response Fund, and we've delivered over $750,000 so far into the community here on Orcas, and that money is at work today. So I'm a little concerned that the county is funding itself to the tune of $500,000, and so far we haven't seen very much coming into the islands. So it's a concern. I'd love to have that conversation.
Well,
I'm hoping we can hear more about it.
Well, I think we're talking about two different things. I'm talking about expenditures for our Emergency Operations Center, where we had 70 people at one time undertaking a number of activities to address the emergent pandemic healthcare issue. And so those activities aren't necessarily the same activities that you've undertaken.
Actually, I think they are really similar. So what we've been doing is really working to try to make sure that the unsheltered in our community have shelter, that the home health care workers have PPE, that, I mean, it's been really similar, actually. So I'm just curious to get more information.
So from what I understand, and kick me off this comment thread if I should be, but that $500,000 is a reimbursement for expenses that have already been incurred for things like PPE and staff time in the initial response. But Mike, tell me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, it's without getting into too much detail, it's the stand-up of our Emergency Operations Center, and all of the folks' time and rental for facilities and gear and fuel and vehicles and all kinds of things. As far as the money goes, I mean, we are excited to receive federal CARES funding. So the expenditure that we have as a county we've incurred that expense to date. So it's not like we were given $500,000 and we can just spend it. So we are dependent on the CARES money and FEMA and perhaps other sources of money from the state to try to recover the county's cost.
Right. And that would include things like testing and all the, putting together the special web page for this and all that stuff too.
Yeah, I'd be happy to follow up with Hillary offline.
Yeah, let's do that because we've got a bunch of questions. Thank you, Hillary.
Great, thanks for your time, Mike.
And thanks, Mike. And then Hillary, you also asked about a question about the commerce funding. Was that the Working Washington Small Business Emergency Grant?
No, that was actually a housing grant, I believe. And
okay.
So we know that some of it's gone through for the shelter and some apparently for the Safe San Juans, but it's not entirely. I think some is being reserved for the emergency housing in case we have a surge when we go to phase 2, which is likely.
Okay, cool. Well, Mike and Hillary, keep me posted on your conversations because I would love to know.
Okay,
Thank
take
you.
care.
Krista, do you want to go ahead and ask your question? Krista Campbell, the Chamber Director from Lopez.
Yeah, I have it's a very simple question, but I have been looking at, we have our restroom facilities here on the county park in the village, and people are wanting that reopened as we go into restarting. And so I put out some calls to the county just to try to find out what the position is on that. But I'm just wondering, all the guidance materials that I keep kind of watching as they come up on the list through the governor's office, I haven't seen anything that really fits that bill. So I'm kind of wondering between maybe when libraries are opening or businesses that have restrooms or other, if the county or state parks. I ran into a state park guy today and asked him about that, and it wasn't very clear. He wasn't following any guidance. He just said they were quiet, so they didn't have to clean it very often. So I'm kind of looking to know whether anyone's seen any guidance material come through from Olympia on public facilities like that in terms of how often they need to be maintained and how they're maintained.
Victoria, can I jump in on that?
Yeah, please do.
I can tell you that we have public restroom facilities in Friday Harbor, and there was a carve out from the original governor's order that allowed facilities such as public restrooms to remain open, especially if you can show that they were utilized extensively by the homeless. And Friday Harbor, we do have quite a few people that were utilizing that as their sole source of having a public restroom and to be able to wash their face. And so we've had our public restroom open daily since this started. And I think if you go back to the original governor's order and take a look, you will see that there's a carve out to keep public restrooms open, especially if you have, if you're servicing any type of a homeless population. Not the expert on it, but that's what I saw when we had to decide what to do with ours.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so in terms of a carve out, you mean permission to do so, but not so much specific guidance on, or guidance on how they want them maintained or whatever.
Right. It was authorized to open to the public, and they hung it on the fact that the public restrooms are utilized by the homeless. So I think you'll find some guidance in that original order that came out somewhere around March 23rd from the governor's office, 2023. Okay, what I'm thinking of.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Krista. Okay, on to Barbara Merritt. Barbara, let me go ahead and unmute you so you can ask your question, because you had a couple of good questions and a good comment. So we'd love to hear that. Oops. Hey, Barbara, can you hear? Maybe not. Okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and read out her question because it is a good one. And this one's for Mark. And it is, lodgings are unclear on whether they can host visitors, non-essential travelers, when we move to phase 2. Please confirm whether or not this is a phase 2 or a phase 3 opening.
So, yes. The health officer order prohibits transient accommodations currently through May 31st. He is considering extending that. And if you actually look at the governor's phased plan, it indicates that non-essential travel remains in place through phase 2. You can resume non-essential travel in phase 3. In phase 2, it says non-essential travel close to your home. And so a lot of people are interpreting that to mean that close to your home does not mean overnight travel. And so I would anticipate the health officer who is considering his current order may extend the transient accommodation for essential business or essential employees only will be extended until we enter phase 3.
Oops. Thank you, Mark. Barbara, did you want to mention the thing that you commented on? Or we don't have you yet, do we? Okay, so Barbara wanted to note, and I think Rick, you might be able to answer that. I mean, Rick Hughes. Hasn't the county given $20,000 to each family resource center? She also wanted to note that lodgings can be open for essential workers in phase 1. And Rick, did you want to respond to the funding that you gave to the Family Resource Center and the emergency rental assistance, if you're there?
There was $40,000 that was given to each of the Family Resource Centers for emergency rental assistance, plus a CDBG block grant, which is it's a federal pass through to the state, was given to Whatcom County, a whole amount that was distributed through the Opportunity Council to each of the family resource centers, about $15,000 a person. So it's close to, what is that? Close to $55,000 per family resource center for emergency rental assistance. So that was just answering the question that Barbara had asked.
Thank you, Rick. That's great to know. Okay, it looks like we are out of questions on the chat. I am going to go ahead. We've got maybe 10 more minutes left before we do our closing comments.
Angie had a topic she wanted to bring up.
Thanks, John. And by the way, everybody, John Gomez works for the EDC. He is our recovery coordinator, and that's a position that's 100% funded by the county, and it's basically he works 16 hours a day helping small businesses to get stronger right now, helping them with unemployment claims, helping them with PPP applications, anything that they need. So if you know businesses that have any needs, reach out to us and one of us can help you out. I am going to go ahead and ask Angie's question, or actually let me just unmute you, Angie, and you can ask your own question. So here you go, I think. Maybe. John, can you get Angie unmuted? I don't seem to have that. Oh, there she is. Okay, good. Angie, will you ask your question?
Well, we have a small business on AUKUS, online business. We've been in business since 1988. We're not interacting with the public at all. We are in the self-care business, and our business is booming right now because everyone's at home and they want to learn how to meditate. So my thought that I've had for a long time, and maybe in sometime in the future it wouldn't be a bad idea, would be for the EDC to have like a panel or a forum that people bring their online business ideas, and people who have online businesses or have expertise in that area give feedback or vet, help them vet their idea. Would that really work? Maybe like Shark Tank, some people might want to become investors, but mainly I was thinking about something whereby people could talk to some experienced people about whether their idea might work as an online business. Because right now my husband and I, we're really busy. We have some employees that are all working from their home. This is a way to be on the islands, is to have an online business. We're not in tourism. So.
Great, thank you, Angie. That's a really wonderful idea. I will reach out to you separately outside the meeting, and we can talk about setting up that committee. In the past, the EDC has done sort of a Shark Tank thing. We did a launch, it was called Launch San Juan Islands. It was a business plan competition.
Right.
But it would be interesting to do that under the umbrella of the new normal. So I'll reach out to you so we can talk about that, because that's kind of an exciting thought. Thanks, Angie.
It would be kind of like a pre-business plan idea,
Exactly.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, thanks, Angie. I'll reach out to you tomorrow.
Okay.
Okay, good. Let me see if there's any more questions in the chat box. There are no more questions. So for the next 10 minutes, I'm going to go ahead and unmute the room. I do want the room to stay civil, though. This is an EDC event and not a county event. And so if you could keep your questions civil, if we have longer discussions, we can go offline later and have discussions with individual people. Just want to make sure we all know that. So I'm going to go ahead and unmute all of you. If you're rattling a bag of chips or something, go ahead and mute yourself back up. Here we go.
You don't blind people.
Okay, everybody's been unmuted. And
you know what? I always think that
I'm going to try and mute.
If you can raise $800,000,
that are
it's already working. Why are you talking to me?
Okay, do we have any questions from the room in general?
Hi, Victoria. this is Todd Nicholson,
Hey,
Port of
yay.
Friday Harbor.
Cool.
Yeah,
Okay, good.
my Zoom kind of failed on me, and
That's
so
okay.
I called in.
This is great. Actually, I would love to get an update on what the Port of Friday Harbor is doing too.
Okay, I'll be quick because I know this is question and answer time.
That's okay.
So the Port of Friday Harbor is largely open for business. The airport continues to operate. Normal scheduled flights are largely curtailed, if not completely eliminated. A certain amount of San Juan Airlines is running critical worker and critical supply runs. Kenmore is doing limited charter for critical services. But other than that, that's where the airport operations are pretty limited. As far as the port, the regular port operations go, we're doing social distancing, doing maintenance, and continuing with capital projects. Our biggest concern right now is most people know, but not everybody knows, that the port actually runs much like a business, in that 10% of our income is tax revenue. The other 90% is normal business operations like mortgage and fees and land leases and building leases. So the Port of Friday Harbor is suffering significantly with all of the other businesses that have a tourism connection. The one spot of good news for the Friday Harbor is that our business appears to be somewhat insulated, since it's a lot of permanent local mortgage. And we do have about $1.2 million in CARES funding for the airport. So we have started doing rent referrals for our businesses on port properties. We anticipate doing additional relief efforts as we kind of do the math between what resources do we have, how bad is this going to hit us, and what's left over to try to defer some of the losses for businesses that are getting hit harder than us. Because without question, there are a number of businesses in the restaurant, whale watching, tour type environment that are getting hit far worse than we are. So we're going to watch that as it plays out and see what part we can play in helping on that. Beyond that, like everybody else, we're just kind of watching to see how these phases play out. We do anticipate that the transient moorage, which is a major gateway to the town and the county's economic development and the businesses in town, we expect that will be closed through up until at least phase 3. And so that will affect the town businesses in addition to the Port of Friday Harbor revenue. So we're anxiously awaiting to see how that plays out, and if phase 3 brings that activity back, or if the county decides to extend it beyond that. So that's kind of in a nutshell what the Port of Friday Harbor is thinking about.
Great, thank you, Todd. Fantastic. So do we have any questions from the room for any one of our speakers? I will mention that you can reach out to us offline if you send an email to us at the EDC, sanjuansedc.org. That's our website, and you can find our email address. Our phone number is 378-2906, and we can put you in contact with any of the speakers who spoke today. But it looks like there might be a question. Did I hear a question happening back there?
Rick Hoffman from Porto Lopez. I have a question for Todd. Have you been able to keep fuel sales open both at the airport and at the marina?
Yes, Rick. We have kept the fuel pier open, both the fuel pier and the airport fuel. So that has been an essential service and in operations. They're like everywhere else, they have some protective equipment and some social distancing protocols in place, but that has been going since the beginning.
Not really.
And in addition to that, we've also, like the town, kept our public facilities open because we serve we have a large liveaboard community and also a community within the town that uses the laundromat and uses the bathrooms, and we really can't service the folks that live within the marina and need those services. They had to be maintained open, and then we've been doing pretty extensive cleaning routines on those, but we deem those as critical services to remain open.
Thanks, Todd. Appreciate it. We get questions from time to time.
Fantastic. Thank you. Do we have any more questions from the room? I know that there's a hand raise feature, so let me go through the room and see if anybody's got their hand raised. Looks like not. Okay. Well, nobody was ever sad to see a meeting end early. Oh, Jonathan. Jonathan Aldort from Orcus has his hand up. So I think you're unmuted, but let me go ahead and make sure.
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, there you are. Okay, good.
Yeah, so this is a more general question, I guess, for whoever wants to take it. But you know, I heard on the radio today that right now the states being hit hardest in unemployment are Hawaii and Nevada, both because both are highly dependent on tourism. And so as we, you know, I think a lot of people in our community are looking at, you know, this is probably going to be a prolonged battle, and you know, how do we? I'm wondering if the EDC or anybody else has anything in the works in terms of providing, you know, trainings or some kind of funding, you know, to help people get on their feet in other trades or
Yes.
types of activity.
Yes, that's a really great question, Jonathan. Thank you. So, since you asked me about the EDC, we are definitely working on that. We spent the last couple of years working on trades training because it's a great way to upskill people into higher wages. Tourism is an incredibly important industry, and it's one that does see fluctuations when there's economic fluctuations regionally or nationally. And so we are looking at other industries that we could train people into that might weather these ups and downs a little bit more readily. And so that is a conversation that we've been having for a few years, and one that's really been kicked to the forefront. In terms of grants to small businesses, right now I am working on a grant program for small businesses. We had received, well, we haven't gotten the money yet, but we had participated in a program through Commerce for funds for grants for small businesses, and it just didn't go far enough. We were only able to, or they were only able to fund 21 businesses in San Juan County. And so we're looking right now for funding to be able to grant businesses money to pivot to the new normal, to be able to do web development, work with local coders and web designers to get their businesses modern life ready, like get them online, get them into a shopping platform, to help them learn how to do curbside delivery.
How's that going to help a van service, a shuttle service?
So something that you could look for would be PPE. So that will be another component of the grant. And we're working on this right now, so stay tuned, because that'll be another couple of weeks before we've got it fully ready to go.
Okay.
Thanks, Jonathan. Do you have any more questions, or was there something that I didn't cover?
Well, I guess generally speaking, I was wondering if there was any kind of plan to try to, you know, make our economy less dependent on tourism in the future, or more diversified, because I think a lot of people, even before this happened, felt that we were becoming too one-dimensional.
Yes, and as I said, it's an important industry and not one that we just want to abandon completely. And
right. Yeah.
We need to build up other industries so we have some hedge against future downturns, or this one that's happening right now. And yes, there are efforts. There's a group on Orcus that I'll be participating with. There's actually a group on San Juan Island, and so the idea will be to make that into more of a cohesive community conversation. So I would love actually to reach out to you to talk to you about that rising effort. So,
and Victoria, this is Todd. Just so you know, and we'd love to join that conversation too, because the Port Commission has been very consistent in the message that we need to focus on. We have a solid, functioning, and important tourism industry, but Port's mission, or at least focus, is on non-tourism year-round jobs, and we have upwards of 50 to 60 acres of in-development business park right now that we want to focus that effort on.
Great. Yeah, that's important. And I think actually all of the ports in the county could really play an important part in that. The mission of all ports in Washington State is economic development. So that's an important group of entities to pull into this conversation too.
I see Rick Hughes has his hand up.
Oh, thanks, John. It's hard to keep track of all the little boxes. So Rick, I think you're unmuted. So
I'll be super quick. So just Jonathan, to your question, a couple things. When we move into phase 2, this is a really great opportunity, as this is a locals only modification of the rules. And if we want to show our community that we can support a local economy year round, this is the perfect time for all of us to get out and support our local businesses. So I think that's a key thing. Thanks to Rock Island and Opalco in the past, we have a fiber network, well, not perfect for everyone, has provided a lot of really great opportunities for people to stay at home and work at home. And I also think the county is moving forward to support Victoria Compton with alternative trade force training, and the county's looking at investing, hopefully, if I can have my way, which I'm not sure I will, but hopefully up to $1 million to put a megawatt of solar power on all of our county buildings, and that will help diversify and provide alternative energy sources for the county. But we have a unique opportunity. I have seen a noticeable change in my community and the environment, and we need to capitalize on it. And we all need to work together to figure out how we can have an expansive economy that isn't so tourism related. But at the same time, we need to be good island spirit and stewards to folks who come visit us, and not vilify them because they're not from here. So I think we have an opportunity to be successful and look for new paths. The internet, I think Angie's point for her business is a great example of a success story when you can work at home, and we've all now learned Zoom. And I know I don't want to go back to Friday Harbor that much anymore. Sorry, Carrie and Duncan, but just kidding. But anyway, I think we have a unique opportunity to take advantage of this crisis to create a better community for all of us, but we have to be open and inclusive.
yeah, absolutely. I think it's important to remember that we've got many industries and we want to build up more. So keep what we got, build more. So we're almost out of time. If you have more questions, send us an email. John put the email address and the phone number in the chat box. If you're on a phone, it's info@sanjuansedc.org. Our phone number is 378-2906. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, and I hope you join us next week as well. We're putting together the speakers for next week, and we'll keep you posted via local online news or our Facebook page or our newsletter on our website. Thank you everybody so much for joining us. Have a good night.
Thanks, Victoria.
Thanks, Krista. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.